everyone. Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us. I am joined by some industry titans in the room. We've got Rishabh from Suncorp. I'd love to hear more about what your role is there. Same as Amanda and Rajiv. But yeah, let's start with Rishabh. What does Responsible AI Officer at Suncorp do?
Okay. So, hi everyone. I'm Rish. At Suncorp, I work as an AI safety manager. And my focus is on ensuring that the way we are designing, developing, deploying, building, using AI in a safe, responsible, and in a way that is aligned with our values, commitment, and regulatory expectations. So that's in a bit, that's what we really do at Suncorp.
Yeah, so Amanda Tay, I am at ING. Essentially, what I do and bring today would be the frontline perspective and how do we create value for our customers for products they actually want and need and want to use, and then how do we deploy that within our organisation in a scalable and sustainable way.
Yeah, so my name's Rajiv Shah. So I'm a director of Australian Information Security Association. So that's Australia's peak association for cybersecurity. And so obviously I'm keen here to bring a cybersecurity perspective. My background comes from having about 30 years of experience, which is another way of saying I'm really old. But I used to work in things called big data and information security, and they were really boring, and no one ever wanted to talk to me at parties. And now I say I work in AI and I work in cybersecurity, and it's really exciting, right? And I even get invited to come up on stage and talk to you. In my day job, I work as a consultant, and I work with government and large corporate organisations, help them to understand advanced technologies such as AI, work out how to do something useful with them, and also how to make sure they keep them safe and secure. So looking forward to sharing maybe some of those experiences with you.
Awesome. Great. And just a bit about me. So I'm Jisoo. I'm co-founder and director at ClearAI. We're an AI consultancy and implementation partner, but our tagline is Elevate Humanity. Basically, me and two of my other co-founders, 2 years ago, we saw this oncoming wave of technology, and we saw all the hype, all the noise, all the snake oil salesmen, all the random plugging and playing and experimenting that was happening. And my background's in national security, so for me, I was like, great, are we now creating a really strong counter-espionage picture of Australia through AI tools? So I joined forces with my other co-founders, and yeah, we're just helping businesses understand AI, because I think it helps that I'm non-technical, because I can speak to those that are non-technical, and they're the majority of a lot of leadership, executives, boards. How many times, maybe this is the wrong audience, but I like to ask who here is a computer scientist, and normally I'll get maybe one person in the room put up their hand. So we're here to kind of bridge that gap and make AI safe and secure for businesses, and kind of really help them get the upside, but really be alive to the risks as well. And that's so much of what we do, right? We say words like responsible AI, safe and secure, adoption, human-centric adoption. They're all almost like shibboleths at this point. What do you guys think? I guess this is also like a tension question as well, because we are all people that are interested in AI safety. We are all people that are aware of the risks, but we are also helping organizations use AI. We're also helping people almost push this rapid technology along, right? So how do you guys deal with that? Because I sometimes feel like I have cognitive dissonance, but I think it's healthy that I have that, because if I didn't have that, I think I would be possibly the wrong person to be advising organizations on using AI, right? How do you deal with it, Rajiv?
So I think what's been interesting for me is, once upon a time, the security department was the department of no, right? What did you want to do? You went out cybersecurity, and they said, no, you can't do it. And we realized very rapidly that that's not a good answer in the age of AI, because all these tools are there, they're available. And what happens if you just say no all the time is people probably go around you and set up all these shadow IT systems and all this. Or the other risk that you can have if you lock your system so far down that you can't do that is that your organization then doesn't get left behind. So your organization gets left behind because you're not willing to adopt that. So in actual fact, cybersecurity has had to sort of adapt its way, and rather than being the no, 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 it's got to be, well, okay, how do we find a way of making sure you can do this? And therefore, I think cybersecurity at the end of the day has been all about risk management. So what we can help people to do is say, well, if this is the outcome you want to achieve, these are some of the risks that are going to be there, and some of them we're willing to accept and some of them we can do something about. And again, it comes back to a lot of my job is in helping people to understand technology. And it's like people say, well, security is really, really important. Well, security is really, really important. What we do, we have a system with one terminal in the basement and one, you have to swipe in and go and use it, and then you can't write anything down when you come out again. That doesn't make it very useful. So we have to connect things together. And the same way, if people want to get the benefits from AI, we have to accept that, for example, we're going to use third-party service providers. We're going to have data moving across boundaries. We're going to have things about the lack of visibility or control around that. And it's actually saying, well, can we control and bound that risk and work out what we're willing to accept in return for the benefits that we're getting out of this system? And is that a fair trade-off? So that's really been the important thing, right? Is, you can't be the department of no. You've got to find out. It can be yes if you're willing to do X, Y, Z. And that's the conversations we need to have.
Yeah, so I think I kind of resonates like the way you're kind of thinking around this. See, the way I kind of think around this is, it's not like we need to choose opportunity over the risk. The idea here is that this opportunity can become a real value for business only when people can trust it. And the trust only comes when there is scalable adoption of AI. And that actually is only driven when basically we have responsible AI in place. So I like to think of it like, let's imagine that we have this Formula One car. The whole point of Formula One car is speed and performance. But you will never hear a racing team saying that, let's remove the brakes, or let's not do safety checks, or let's not do some of those telemetry, let's take that off. You will never hear that would happen, because that would be ridiculous, because those are the things that give driver and the team that confidence to push the car to its limit. So responsible AI is the same. It's not about blocking innovation. It's about enabling innovation and basically giving you that license to scale AI safely.
Yeah, and I think from my point of view, you want tension. You always want tension. It's important to feel like you're not going fast enough. If you don't feel that way, you probably are going fast enough. So always want to feel tension. And we talk about AI as its own unique technology, but it's all just business anyway. And if you want to make profit, it needs to be sustainable. And you can only ever go as fast as your people will come with you and your customers will trust you. It doesn't take long to see people that have used this technology without enough foresight, and it's ruined their brand, ruined their trust. And that's all you've got in business. So you can be responsible, you can do whatever. I just call it good business and good sustainable business. Remove the word AI, you need to do it for whatever you want to do in innovation.
Yeah, totally. And I think trust in AI in Australia, we know, is at like rock bottom, right? Like when we think about, do I trust AI? Do I trust the machine? Inherently, it's just no, like, do I trust this machine to assess my, bank loan? I don't know, haven't applied for one recently. I'm sure there is one. But, do I trust this machine to be aligned with my values? Do I trust this machine to know me? The answer is no. So really, AI adoption in industry is very much a people problem. Like, we're finding that it's very emotional. So from me as a consultant coming in, working with a business, people always come with their preconceptions of AI, right? They're like, well, it's going to take my job. You're training this to just replace me one day. So I think there's almost a way to really change this narrative, because I think we're very fortunate in Australia. We don't have Silicon Valley. We don't have Wall Street. We can really carve out our own narrative. And I think we're also seeing this in Australia a lot more, but we really need to own it in the sense that in Australia, we're not keen to just replace people, reduce headcount. We're actually really keen to do more because we care, and we can. And I think, we've got a good setup. We can do renewable energy. We're more values focused. We care about our environment, our people. Is there something that, is there a couple of stories that you guys can tell where your people have at first maybe hesitated, and how you guys really changed that, like flipped the switch on actually getting them along for the ride and helping them understand this is not about reducing headcount. This is actually about, improving, like you're saying, Rishabh, we're a Formula One car. We need to get ready for, I don't know, Monaco. I don't know. Sorry, I'm not a Formula One person. But, it's making sure that we're really slick and we can provide the services that our customers trust us to deliver. Like, do you guys have stories where people have come along for the ride?
So I like to talk about this. There's this very interesting book by an author called Yuval Noah Harari. It's called *Sapiens*, that talks about the evolution of humankind. And one of the interesting points the author talks about is what is so special about humans that makes us so unique and so successful on this planet Earth. And one of the arguments he presents is that it's the trust that we have with each other, the shared belief because of which we are able to cooperate in large numbers. And he kind of goes into this example saying that, okay, if we have 100,000 people going and watching a football match, we would all go peacefully and watch that match, cheer for our team, and in most scenarios, we'll just come back home and rest. But if the same thing would have to happen for our closest cousins, like chimpanzees, that might not be the case. There might be chaos. And that is critical. Because in this increasingly automated world where humans are being replaced by AI, that very trust is being tested. And the answer to that is responsible AI, because responsible AI gives you those foundations, things about accountability, fairness, transparency, testing. All those things are fundamental that basically build on the trust and reduces that trust gap. So for me, the answer is responsible AI. That's going to build that trust that that then we can scale on AI and use AI to its fullest potential.
Yeah, okay, so from my point of view, things have changed in the last few years, but I think the concern probably still lays there with parents and their kids and what are the children going to do. I think that's probably where we're seeing the most concern, not necessarily about people and their roles. I think the way that I've seen it tackled really well and what we do is really show people what's possible. No one's worried that a black box LLM is taking their job anytime soon. I think that's common sense. But when you start to play around with tools, you give some education, and you start to share stories, you'll find that it kind of cultivates a really exciting momentum. We have internal competitions. What is the problem? How do you want to solve it? And bring us a really good use case. And we give out prizes, and there's this fun engagement level about it. Almost to the point, though, I keep on hearing, an agent can do that, an agent can do that, an agent can do that. And in my mind, I'm like, no, they can't. And so we've almost surpassed it. But I love the amount of personal energy because and the other thing is you've got a lot of personal fluency and adoption outside of your workplace. So it is an exciting thing. And the good thing about nowadays is that you don't have to be an expert, you can learn it and be an expert, the flattening of the economy.
So from my point of view, I think what's really important is making sure you set up what is the target state of what people will do and what the AI will do, and help people to understand that's where we're going towards. There was an interesting comment made in one of the talks this morning, even in the frontier labs where they talk about, Anthropic, 80% of the code is written by an AI model. If you got rid of all the people in Anthropic, I'm pretty sure they'd shudder to a halt pretty quickly. And the same is true in any organization. So we're not going to get rid of the people. So what we've got to do is help people to understand what their role is going to be and what the AI is going to do. And so it's like, if we're going to roll out an AI system, it's sort of like, what problem is it going to solve? How is it going to change my job? It's going to take away this piece of my job, so I've got more time to go and do this. And showing people where it's going, rather than maybe the approach that we get, which is sort of like, let's just YOLO it. Let's just, let's roll out some AI. Let's reduce our headcount by 10% and hope AI can make up the gap, right? That sort of thing never works. What you've got to do is set out the vision for people is what is their job going to look like at the end of this process, and what problems is the AI going to solve? And how does that benefit them? Because maybe it takes away the boring bits, the bits they get fed up of doing. And how is it going to benefit the organization? Because it's going to increase our productivity, or it's going to make our product to our customers better, or something like that. It's sort of interesting. I work across a whole load of things, right? And often find all I have to do is sit there with people and about 3 or 4 times just keep on saying, what problem are you trying to solve? What problem are you trying to solve? And then eventually you get to the nub of what you're doing. And once everyone understands that, then everyone can build a shared vision and understanding and get behind doing it. But if everyone got a different idea about why they're doing something, then you very rarely get a successful outcome.
Yeah, and I'd say time and time again we see in engagement scores, people want to do less work with ourselves and spend more time with customers and meaningful stuff. So, to add on to how you take people on the journey is that this thing that you're wanting us to solve for can start to solve for it if we work together.
I think also, this actually shows us that we have a little bit of a human leadership problem because, not that all of these, what you said is problems at all. No, in the sense that, you filled this gap by paving the way, showing the strategy, showing the vision to your people. But when we're, coming in and working with companies, like as a practical example of how to bring your people along, we always work with the CEO to make sure that they have their narrative down pat. Why are you implementing AI? Like the strategy. And is it around preserving your culture, protecting your people, and actually empowering them to do a better job in an increasingly enabled AI economy? And so I think the leaders that perhaps shy away from that, they might think this isn't my job anymore. I actually would disagree. I'd say in the age of AI, it's becoming more and more, like with all the volatile, uncertain world that we live in, people are looking more and more for leaders. They're looking more and more for people to tell them how to feel or what they should be thinking right now because they actually can't make sense of their world. Their world is changing every day. I now say to leaders, you don't have seasons, you now have cycles, and the cycles are very short. So you can't just be like, oh guys, we're just in a growing season. It's like your growing cycle might actually just last a week and then you might, hit rock bottom in the market or whatever it is that Silicon Valley seems to be experiencing every day, So for me, I think it's very much a human problem that needs a human antidote, and that really comes down to communication. The narrative of a CEO saying, hey guys, we've employed a consultancy, they're coming in, they're going to be doing this, but by the way, just so you know, this is not a headcount exercise. This is not a sizing exercise. This is purely us exploring what the opportunities are, what the risks are, and we want to hear from you. We're going to set up feedback avenues, contestability loops, because you guys are important to us. And I think that goes so far that people almost underestimate it. So yeah, I really love that you guys really hit on all those kinds of points there. For me, I think that also then raises another tension, right? Like Amanda, you said, you're really pushing AI adoption. It then gets to a point where you're seeing like AI slop emails, or you get AI generated like, hello, as per my previous email. And what's really annoying? I used to actually, I write like that. So people are like, oh, you used AI. And I'm like, no, maybe AI just trained on everything that I basically learn how to do. So thanks. And also I am a public servant, so my public servant writing manual is literally on the internet. So it's a bit annoying, but it's almost like then you have a different set of problems, right? You have cognitive surrender, you have complacency, you have hallucinations and verification. It's almost like in some ways you're automating people's weaknesses. How do you guys deal with that? And with the organizations that you work with, Rajiv, have you seen that happen, and how has that kind of been remedied?
So there's a few different things, a lot of different points there. I think I'm actually going to, a lot of it's around the trust actually in the AI. So what do you know that you can rely on the AI to do, and where is the role of the human in that system? So I suppose because I'm not a government person, I can always speak. Let's talk about robo-debt, for example, right? As an example that's often put up about poor AI practice. That was nothing actually to do with AI, right? To be honest, calling robo-debt AI is a bit of an insult to AI systems in my view. But the problem actually was about not thinking about which part of the decision-making process was being automated, and saying you can't just actually outsource that decision-making essentially to an algorithm to go and decide who's liable and who needs to repay a certain amount of money. So I think that's the bit that we have to make sure we're really clear on, is what is that trust boundary around that. I also think about some of the conversations we've had in this forum already. So people talked about, what are the sort of guardrails or the things you put around. You might have this model that's a black box essentially because it's been trained on a whole load of data. We don't know how it operates. But what we can do is we can put constraints around it over, what data we put into it, what data we take out of it, how we then use that data, how do we build harnesses around it, and therefore how do we build that extra layers of guardrails around that mean that we can trust that. And I think that's the really important thing. And we've got to be honest with everyone about that. And again, coming to your leadership point, right? So then we be honest with our staff, with our customers, and with our stakeholders around where that trust boundary is and how much we're prepared to trust the AI and how much we're not.
Yeah, and maybe on AI slop and work emails, I think that will normalise. because it's a branding issue and it's super clear where it is. And so, we're all excited now. No one's considering it. But I think that will normalise. People say a lot to not say much sometimes with an AI thing. But then I think, again, you might have AI just automate an article and put it online. It's not going to go viral. I mean, I go back to just good business sense. If you're advertising, you're being present, you want virality, you want people to connect in with your brand. I think you should use AI in marketing. If you're not, it's silly. But it should be to inform different things. But your brand voice always has to come through. So I think the proof is in the pudding. If you AI slop in your own world, it will impact your branding, your opportunities. If you AI slop in your branding and your marketing, that will cause you issues as well.
So the only thing I would add to that is, see, it all comes down to value. So basically, are we able to generate value out of it in terms of productivity, efficiency, or better customer decisions? And that, again, goes to that point that Rajiv was making earlier. It all goes to trust. And then when we think about those trust things, it's basically what we're really seeing in the industry right now is that AI is being used, embedded into products, platforms, services, customer interactions. Now, AI is kind of influencing these real outcomes. So now that changes the expectation naturally. It's no longer enough to say that the technology works. We are asking more questions. We are asking, do we understand the risk? Can we manage that risk properly? Are there proper controls in place? Can we stand behind, as an organization, behind those outcomes? All that is basically good governance and effective risk management. That is it. So that is going to build that trust and drive that AI adoption at scale.
Yeah, and kind of like touching on that. So I feel like, with the kind of human problems of like now we're using AI and we want to make sure it's aligned to us and to our voice and branding and all of that. But there's also like really great stories in even just how, bringing people along to trust AI, they are really starting to see the benefits and it's really helping boost people. So, for example, we work with a few mining companies and a lot of these guys are out on sites and they're very busy and often they come from very kind of like, I guess they're just like under the pump all the time. So they're managing a lot and there's actually something to be said about uptake of AI, the excitement of AI in industry and burnout, I think, because people are actually just like so overworked in some ways. But I was speaking to a guy and he was saying like, I just love Copilot because I can just talk to it and I'm dyslexic. And it's really awesome because I can now just say what I need to say and I can get my emails out faster. And even though it reads like AI slop, my team loves it because they finally know what I'm trying to say. They don't have to come back to me and be like, what is it that you really wanted us to do with the truck? So I think it's stories like that we really need to be finding ways to enable more of. And it's really like equal opportunity. Like, we work with some companies that have multi-jurisdictions. It's very hard sometimes to translate. And you've got like AI that's able to do live translations and actually help fill the gaps a lot of the time. So I think that's also really cool. Have you guys seen AI in your workforces really enable and help people step up to the places that they really want to be?
So it's quite interesting what you talk about there. I think there's some really good use cases. I'll first of all do my pedantic hat. There are other types of AI than large language models. But if you look at things like large language models, I think they enable that natural language interface and actually help a lot of that things around the sort of verbal communication, cross-border communication. I think there's some really good use cases around that. I think one of the things, though, we sort of tell people to think about is that you have to think about how you're applying. Essentially, they're non-deterministic. If you want some sort of subjective output, then a large language model is quite good for getting it. If you want a nicely written email, that's good. If you want to do some precise calculations or precise arithmetic, then it's not necessarily. You might need to use some sort of more mathematical technique. I think one of the other interesting things, if I go back, when we started off with computers, right? Computers were something where if you gave it the right instructions, you could guarantee it would get the right output. And AI is not like that, right? AI is fundamentally an imperfect model of the world. So then we have to think about how do we use it. It's not actually something where if we give it the right instructions, we're guaranteed to get the right answer. We're going to give it some instructions and we get something that we think might be useful, and therefore we need to know how much to do that. So picking the right job to use AI for and using the right type of AI to use for it as well is really important. But I think you're right. Obviously, all the excitement in the last couple of years has come around large language models, and they just reduce the barrier to entry to anyone to use this. Right? You don't need to be a data scientist. You don't need to understand tensor arithmetic. You don't even need to format your data neatly. All you got to do is just go and speak or just sort of type freeform into something, and you get answers out. And that's massively valuable, right? Because what that's done is it's vastly expanded the range of capability available to a larger number of people. But we do have to remember some of the trade-offs that we've made there, and think it's not, despite what we might think, it's all seeing, it's certainly AGI is not here yet. It's not a single tool, one to rule them all, that will do everything. So we pick the right tool for the right job.
Yeah, I mean, I think you only have to look at the personal use of an LLM for personal counselling, and really the take-up of that and how prolific that is. And it just talks to being able to have some privacy and not be shamed to ask a question. So if I think about what would progress people forward in the workplace, is being able to ask questions that they may otherwise be embarrassed to ask. I'm in charge of this area, but what does this little thing mean? Boom, you've got it. And so I think to be able to ideate safely, ask questions safely is a big thing that's going to really see people move forward.
So I think the way I kind of look at this is, see, the key characteristics that make AI so valuable is like the speed, the scale, the intelligence. And those are the same characteristics that make it risky as well. So you kind of need to look into what are some use cases that can be used, that can be automated using those characteristics. But then you also need to consider the risk side of things. Are we kind of having the right controls, right mitigation policies in place? So I believe if we have that in place, then definitely that can generate value for the company. Yeah.
Yeah, and also just kind of touching back on what you said, Amanda, with people turning to chatbots for therapy, counselling, confidential conversations. I mean, obviously there's a risk in that, but I feel like that shows an amazing opportunity for culture and society to kind of fill these gaps. It's almost like revealing that there are these gaps and voids that we've left. Maybe just because of modernity and technology, but I feel like it's almost now giving us, and kind of Anna talked about this in her quarterly essay, like the analog life. Like, what does it kind of mean? And for me, it means that I should be spending more time checking in on my friends, like face to face or over a phone call, as opposed to talking to a chatbot and venting all my worries. But yeah, so that was a little side note. But yeah, I guess like in industry, we're kind of seen to be adopting AI faster, and even within industry, there's the early adopters, the fast followers, and then the laggards. How can industry work better with government, academia, civil society, everyone, in bringing everyone along for the ride? Because right now I feel like there's almost like a fractured 2, 3, 4, 5 speed adoption track. Where there's the big end of town, they've been able to spend money on data and on technology for a very long time, make very large investments and very good ones. And then there's the kind of, your small to medium-sized businesses, and they're learning as they go. But they might think that they're behind, but maybe they'll, look at a university and be like, oh, we are actually way more advanced than a university. I don't know. So it's kind of like, and then you go even one step down into civil society, not down, but like across to civil society. And it's like, some people don't even know that ChatGPT, Claude exists. They don't even know co-work, like the risks and dangers of OpenClaw. Like they're just like, they either by choice, because they want to be head in the sand, but also there's quite an uneven proliferation of this technology. So how can we work together with civil society, government, academia for the betterment of humanity in using this technology?
I mean, all I would say is it continually goes back to any other societal problem that we need to solve. Housing, it's not going to be government in its entirety. It's not going to be private sector in its entirety. It's not going to be faith groups in its entirety. So in all of those things, how you move them forward and work together is to talk regularly and often and meaningfully. If you want to try and solve something over a dinner, it's not going to happen, but you need regular engagement. You need to have some thought leadership, and everyone needs to contribute, because you need to be able to paint where you want to go, because what's good for one has to be good for everyone. That's what I would say to that, how you can meaningfully do it.
the thing that I would add to that is it's like we are trying to build this national AI capability. And the way we are trying to do is basically by making our workforce learn about AI, so AI literacy. And I think AI is becoming like an everyday thing. So it's important that the workforce understand how best to use it, when to rely on it, when to challenge it, and when to kind of have that understanding that a human judgment is required. So that's just one aspect. But then the other thing that Amanda just touched upon is the fact that we all need to work together with regulators and government to actually see how we can kind of evolve these policies that we are building. Because this technology is evolving so quickly, and it's important that we kind of reflect back on the real world implementations, and based on that, make those policy changes.
I'd come back to you, you're right, we need more dialogue. I think the main thing we actually need is a lot more transparency, maybe removing some of the stigma about talking about things that went wrong. So, I see this multi-speed, I run a small business and I work with some of the largest government departments. So I've seen that full range of speeds that we talk about. But I think for those organizations that can get ahead and move more quickly, we've got to have more of a feedback loop, not just talking about what worked, but let's remove the stigma about talking about what went wrong. What was a disaster? Why did it go wrong? What would we have done differently if we had our time again? And if we can somehow be really transparent about that, that's how we'll then share the benefits around us. Because if we just tell the good news stories, we're not telling the truth, and we're not really going to get that shared learning and building of capability.
Yeah, and we do, especially some of the smaller organisations without the capital to move fast, they're probably moving faster, to be honest, because they don't have the constraints, or maybe they're not realising what it is that we're doing, what they are doing and what they're not doing. You can fully enable everything without having the cyber expertise. So again, I think we need to continually work with industry. I say industry, but whatever, like I'm in small business and medium, we've got to be in those forums. And people need to take personal accountability. Any leader needs to take personal accountability in the community forums to know and understand as well. Because the fraud, I do worry a lot about fraud and what's coming upon us. And to be able to protect all of us, especially, and in order to do that, we've got to protect our small and medium-sized businesses and teach them how to do it, because they won't be able to afford the level that we are, because they're not as different kind of level of regulation. And not only that, is helping people grapple with what is a director's responsibility, and what does that look like. And, again, people are still coming to terms with that. We hear that from our regulators, directors. You need to get up to speed a bit more, and we all need to get up to speed a bit more.
Yeah, I love that. And I also love, the open transparency, like transparency is one of the AI principles, right? Like we should be transparent about the mistakes. And often they're just small human errors. It's like, oh, we forgot to turn the data classifiers on. It's like, oh no, we can fix that, and let's tell other people so they don't make the same mistakes.
Though I think a lot of mistakes with AI, if you think investment, is just an inability. I'm not talking about my organisation, it's just examples I've seen. Inability to really do a business case well. Inability to understand, and inability to say no and solve for what customers actually want. A lot of the tools that I interact with from different companies, I'm like, what? I don't even want to know how much that cost you, because all it is doing is annoying me. So you'll spend millions to just annoy me right now. Can I see your business case? Because I'm curious,
I'll give a little anecdote here. I won't mention, but I recently had an experience of trying to work with a technology company, let's say, from whom I tried to buy some equipment, and I tried to phone them up and ask them for help, and I got the automated chatbot. And it basically wouldn't help me until I told it the serial number of what I'd ordered. And I was trying to say, well, I haven't ordered it. It hasn't arrived. That's why I'm calling you. And I just couldn't do anything. And I just say, can I speak to someone? So no, I don't understand that. I can't help you with that. So somewhere in their back office is a metric saying it's brilliant. This chatbot is 100% effective because no calls ever get escalated to an operator. But am I incentivized to ever go and use that company ever again? And will I ever buy their AI models? Probably not.
Yeah.
So how much did that cost, and what was the opportunity cost of doing that?
How much did it cost someone to put that in place?
And what did they tell the board?
Totally. And also, I think Bunnings recently released an AI chatbot, and one of the design principles was do not obstruct the way to speak to a human. Because anytime I get automated stuff, I'm like, speak to human, human. You know, I just want to go straight there. It's kind of weird, even though I'm very like digitally literate, I still want to speak to a human. So I think there's something to be said there, right? There's design choices in that, there's deployment choices and development choices in how we can share what we're seeing with government, academia, industry. I also want to flag that we're open to questions. So I'm just going to end on a couple of things. There's so many things that we haven't touched, mainly because sometimes they're a bit spicy. We can't talk about stuff. But I kind of want to have 2 more extra questions before maybe we look at some questions. But I guess the main one is more for Rajiv and what you guys are seeing. But if you look at the MIT AI risk domains, the number one thing that industry cares about is data security and privacy, right? That's like, they're like, that is our IP, that is our lifeblood. We do not want that to go anywhere. What is the best way for industry to prepare itself for the onslaught of AI security problems that are going to come just as the technology gets better and better?
So this is a great advert. Go and speak to your local cybersecurity professional, right? Because actually, this is what cybersecurity people have been telling you. I was having this conversation a couple of times over the last couple of days, right? Actually, for about, we talk about things like mythos and the cybersecurity threats. For 20 years, cybersecurity professionals have been telling you to go and do various basic things correct, right? Like just ask some questions before you connect this to the internet. Do I need to put access control on it? Do I need to put authentication on it? All these sort of things here. And we've all been a bit slack and we sort of got away with it. And we've just taken the convenience benefits of just plugging everything together and having it all work seamlessly and hidden in the noise. And that veneer is going to go away very quickly. So what you've got to do is go back to that. And here's again, so go to your local cybersecurity professional. They'll tell you, they'll help you to understand where your data is, how to classify that data, what the risks are with that data, how to protect it. You go and say, I want to go and deploy the system, whether it's an AI system or some other SaaS system, something like that. We can help you to understand, well, what is your data? Where does your data go? Who has access to it? What are the risks? How could the system be compromised? And so on. I also do, so anyone here got a Telstra phone? We all had a little issue on the Telstra network. And interesting thing also is when we talk about data security, the other thing we need to think about from a security point of view is if you build your systems where they become critically dependent on this AI platform, what are you doing to ensure the availability of that platform? And what is your fallback plan when that platform goes out of service or has an outage or something like that? It's not just about confidentiality, but actually availability is that bit of cybersecurity often gets forgotten because it's not as exciting. But actually, if someone has some personal experience, it can have the bigger impact when we lose it.
So I'll talk through this, not just a security lens, but just an AI safety lens, like much broader than that. So like in large enterprises, AI can enter through many different doors. Like AI could be in the form of co-pilot style assistants, or AI could be embedded into third-party platforms or vendor solutions. Or it could be an AI that you're building in-house. It comes in all forms and shapes. It's like, so if you imagine there is, I like to use this transport safety analogy. So let's say you have a bicycle, a car, and an aircraft. We all can agree that there is a safety element to all of them. But you would not put them through exactly the same standard safety process. That would be absurd. So see, the idea here is, given that they all carry the different level of risk, we need to be proportionate when we are sort of thinking about the controls and the governance that need to be in place. So I think that is the key idea, that need to be proportionate depending upon what is the risk there, and that based on that, we need to be thinking about those controls.
All I'd say is we've been talking in industry about cleaning up your data for 10 years. It's important. But now I guess people are realising, hang on, I can then spend money to overlay AI and it's just not going to be as effective. And so it's also one of those things like putting your data into the cloud. It's very costly, but what does it deliver for you right now? And the same thing, a lot of cleaning up of the data. When you've got an opportunity cost to bring in some income that financial year, but you're choosing to do this. It's, again, I think we're at a pivotal point that you can't move forward. So it's those who had the foresight before, and again, it goes back to executive education. How much do we know data? How much do we know those things, and really driving the point of what you need to do.
Totally. I mean, if I had, like, this time last year, I wouldn't have said to anyone, yeah, Microsoft Copilot's really good. It wasn't. Now, yes, it's actually not too bad, but people are like, oh, it's still really bad. And I'm actually like, okay, let's just do a quick little data landscape review. And we do these for clients. One client, they came back, it was like 3.1 million files or something that they had accumulated over like 20 years, and they only used 18%. So I was like, yeah, if Copilot is surfacing answers that are completely irrelevant, that's probably why. So it's those kinds of like basic things that really helps kind of paint the full picture of how do we actually make it work, and also kind of touching on what you were saying, Amanda, like business case, cost. This is becoming a huge thing in industry, especially as now we're talking about token-based usage and token maxing and et cetera, et cetera. I think the one thing that I want to say to that without kind of going into it too much is really, everyone is being sold the V8 supercar. You don't need the V8 supercar. Maybe you just need the Corolla to get from A to B. And that is also, I think, just don't listen to the hype. Don't listen to the Silicon Valley hype. They are always going to want to upsell and sell you the next best thing. They are always going to make you, do extra plugins and connectors and skills, et cetera, et cetera. But really, yeah, choose what suits your organization, choose what suits your values and principles. Do the research if you want as well. Like, when it comes to data centers, where is it all going? And all the kind of values and principles. Like, you can even do scorecards kind of with AI now. So it's really good. Oh yeah, Rajiv, you look like you're dying to say something.
No.
Oh, okay, cool. My last question, and then we'll move to questions. What is your hopeful vision? Because we're all doing this, we're all in industry, thinking about AI safety, thinking about what does safe and secure responsible AI look like. We're all doing this for a reason. It's because we have an end goal, a hopeful vision for what, how humanity, how our country can experience and roll out AI. What is that to you? Like, what is the hopeful vision?
So for me, I think it's AI-enabled transformation that's going to deliver value for our customers, for our organizations, with human-centric values, accountability, all those things, I believe.
Yeah, for me, no one left behind, and that we're solving for some really meaningful things and driving society forward, and that in our everyday work we can do what more aligns to what we're sort of born, what's our innate passions, and we can work more in line with that.
So I'm going to take the opportunity of a shameless plug again, which is actually the future looks like the cybersecurity profession at the heart of enabling this transformation. Because I go back to what Minister Charlton actually opened with yesterday. He said, safety and innovation are not either or. They're actually things that work together. And by building in the safety, we enable the innovation. And so, again, I'll come back to the fact that, cybersecurity professionals will be thinking about things like data security and risk management for many years. And if you have them in the conversations right at the start, then we can get this right. And again, if we could have our time again, right? Maybe if we put some cybersecurity in at the start before we built the internet, maybe it would be in a much better way to resist things like Mythos and so on. But that ship has sailed, right? But we have an opportunity now. AI in a few years' time is going to look very different from what it is now. But if we can start building in and getting cybersecurity at the heart of how we build those systems now and build that capability, we'll be in a much better place than if we decide to just sort of like build it and then secure it later.
Great, thanks guys. I'll share mine right at the end, but we've got a couple of questions, I think.
Thank you. So we've got about 10 minutes for questions, and we want to get through as many as we can. So we might do a bit of a race. We'll go for 2 perspectives per question if we can. First question, which has already been submitted, is around, there's many organisations out there working really hard to implement responsible AI governance, but it seems as though it would be really difficult for most of these organisations to put their hand on their heart and say, we've got it sorted. What is the most common challenge that you think is preventing organisations from getting there?
I want to say very quickly, I think it's people. You need to build it around the people and processes, not around an outcome. Because at the end of the day, people are the ones that will be in the business, drive the business, come up with the ideas. So it needs to be around people. And sometimes you might have built the strategy or built the thing around an outcome or an objective. And even if you haven't, then maybe it's you actually don't know where your people really are at, where they're feeling with it. So maybe doing some staff surveys or doing some interviews is really useful. It will unveil a lot.
I might just say, I think it's more fundamental than that. It's actually often about coming back to, do you know what problem you're trying to solve? You said, we're really bad at producing business cases. If you don't know what good looks like, then you can't govern the outcome effectively. And therefore that upfront definition is often where a lot of the governance fails.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you very much for a very interesting panel and for being here. I'm wondering if the panelists can share some anecdotes of how they've brought mid and senior level managers along to invest in capability uplift within their organization, and that's both within industry as well as within government. Because I also notice a dearth of business cases, yet everybody's using, 85% of the public services in Queensland is using AI. 10% of the organizations have a policy for it, and even fewer are actually training people. Thanks.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, it is. That's a big problem you just spout out. I think for us, we have a sort of academia for it where you can learn everything from what is an LLM to how do you do it safely. We've got a whole level of education that we want everyone to use, and they are generally used and taken up. We have a thing called AI Guild where essentially you don't have to be a technical person, you just come together and to talk about your passions for AI. So there's a huge amount of investment into the risks, how to use it well. We also have AI agent building. So you go there and you can learn and they'll teach you how to build an agent. And there's a ton of governance on who can use it, what data you can use it. I think in banking it's a bit easier because it's super clear around what data you can use, what data you can't use and how it's classified. But I think we actually do it really well. We create some energy around it, and it seems to be on everyone's IDP. And whatever, which is your development plan, and whatever you want to learn about it, you can. And we'll also, where practical, look outside as well if there's any bespoke learning requirement that's needed. And then when you've got everyone together, I think it's everything. You learn everything from data to. So I think we're doing it really well, and I think a lot of banks are doing it quite well.
Yeah, I was actually just going to say, we have a slightly different approach, obviously because I'm not part of the banking industry or a bigger organization. Because we plan around people, we actually create, I guess, kind of very, you can't assume that everyone understands why they're suddenly in this AI era. They're just being told, like, hey, like ChatGPT exists, and they're like, how do we get here? So it's almost like telling that story to them of like, hey, end of 2022, like Sam Altman accidentally releases technology into the public, and now we're here. So it's like, it's almost telling the story and situating them first and then building on the skills, but also acknowledging that everyone has different levels of understanding, technical efficiency, proficiency. People always overstate, like when we run staff surveys, people always overstate their digital proficiency. And so it's also acknowledging that and actually working with your people to really see, because everyone has different learning styles as well. Some people really thrive in a hands-on hackathon, so it's exploring that as a format. Some people really thrive on the bite-sized LMS modules, exploring that as well. But also some people really thrive on the office hours, drop in, have a one-on-one with a tutor. So we kind of like provide all those kinds of formats because we know that everyone is kind of different. And I know you guys have been like doing that in your organizations, like talking to your people and finding out what works and setting up the kind of different forums for people to play in the ways that really resonates with them. I find what doesn't work is when, I guess, boards and management are like, we've turned on, Copilot licenses and we've done 3 training sessions. Like, why is no one using it? It's like, well, maybe the people that really thrived in that environment are using it, but have you kind of looked at the people that have been left behind and what kind of works for them the best?
Appreciating that you're all working across very different industries, what role would you like to see regulators take in supporting AI safety?
I think the role, so regulators can play a couple of roles. One actually is around, let's call it good old product safety, right? How can you set some minimum standards that make sure that what we go and buy, particularly things that go out to the sort of mass consumer market, are safe and secure by design. We've seen government already taking some action around this on things like sort of mandatory labelling and minimum safety standards around IoT devices. But I think as AI products go into the market, setting that minimum standard is important. So yeah, that'd be my first suggestion on that.
I think the the outline that is there as part of the national AI plan, I think that is sensible and balanced. So it talks about the principle-based approach and supporting or basically having this industry-specific regulations. I think that gives the organization the flexibility to innovate at the same time ensuring the right safeguards and right controls are in place. Also, to Rajiv's point, I think bringing in more clear guidance, some practical expectations of what we should be sort of doing, and also some sort of common language around AI. Like it's very difficult to kind of agree on some definition. So if I go into industry and talk about what an agent is, like in the panel itself, we will not agree on what is an agent. So probably bringing some consistency around that would definitely help.
Yeah, definitely having standards and definitions kind of very much defined would really help. I think what's really interesting, this opens up a whole can of worms for me in some senses, because I'm also thinking about what about the geopolitics of AI, the fact that Australia is so dependent on the US right now, and open source models in China seem to be taking the lead. Like that is going to become a problem, perhaps a moral principle question that we ask and answer later on. But just for the regulator sense, so I was at the Digital Economy Conference a couple of weeks ago, and they had a regulatory breakfast, and I went along to it. I have no idea. Like it was basically about blockchain, crypto, TradFi, DeFi, all that kind of stuff. I'm definitely not in that world, but it was so interesting to kind of see the similarities. It had taken them 10 years to finally get to a place where APRA, ASIC, all of the kind of regulatory bodies were finally asking firms and providers to actually get credentialed. So there's heaps of people right now, they're saying, I can come in and transform your business, blah, blah, blah. I actually think now it should get to a place where you have to be a registered, just somewhat registered or vetted, so that you're not just, breaking all the cybersecurity ISO, like ISO 27001, you just at least have to be aligned to what the Australian government is trying to do in the AI space. So I think that's my thing. But we are very much out of time. I really wanted to share, just to end, my hopeful vision for where I'm hoping that AI goes. I really hope that we tell a very powerful Australian story, that we can actually use AI to give us time back to do the things that we love most. We are a very outdoorsy, like environmentally loving nation. I would love if I could really go and, never have to make a slide deck ever again, because I can go to the beach and I can get Claude to make the slide deck, but I know what I want that slide deck to say. I don't want ever technical skills and lack of to ever bar someone from getting a good idea out there or getting their business off the ground. I really see it as a way to really turn the tap on Australian ingenuity. So I really want a place where we're also thinking about the next generation and how can we actually create a stronger bottom rung for them, given that there's all this technology ahead of them that's going to help them do so much more. So what is it that we can really do to help them get that leg up in the workforce? Maybe it just looks like we're teaching them different things by the time they land their grad roles or their intern roles in our organizations. So that's it. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. I think we've got another session after this, so we're getting booted out, but thank you so much for your time. Cheers.